One claims it's the company's only chance for survival.
Atari has filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. The 31-year-old
AWA presents the difference between
Kodak is filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection.
What's up, guys? My name is Jake, and welcome to the 8th episode of Bankrupt. Pretty much everyone knows about Tesla, a now massive electric car company paving the way for mainstream adoption of electric cars. However, this was a slow progression for them, one that took almost a decade to achieve with basically no other competition challenging them. That is, aside from one. It was a company with the same goals and aspirations of Tesla, which brought out their own hybrid electric sedan. However, while Tesla succeeded, they didn't, and later filed for bankruptcy just a year later. So today, let's take a look at what went wrong with this ambitious American car company, how it failed, and what sort of future it might have. This is Fisker Automotive. This episode has been made possible by my Patreon supporters. If you want to help support the channel financially and get a bunch of great perks in return, go to patreon.com/BrightSunFilms or click the link in the description below. It all began with a Danish man named Henrik Fisker. At heart, he was a car enthusiast and designer. In 1989, he began working for BMW's design studio, creating the instant classic Z8 Roadster. He continued to work there until around 2001, when he left to go work for Aston Martin, which at the time was a division of the Ford Motor Company. As design director there, he was put in charge of both the V8 Vantage and the Aston Martin DB9, two absolutely stunning sports cars even to this day. The designer was well commended for his famous work, which got him thinking of what he can do to further the automobile. Fisker had even bigger aspirations and wanted to do something big, yet entirely controlled in large part by him. So Henrik Fisker and his business partner, Bernhard Kohler, teamed up and put everything on the line. He left his high-level position at Ford to go create his own automotive design company called Fisker Coachbuild. Essentially, this new company was going to act as a design firm, producing custom, low-volume sports cars to wealthy individuals. Fisker founded it in 2005 and soon released their first vehicle, the Fisker Tramonto. It was based on the Mercedes-Benz SL and retained most of the design cues from that car. But now Fisker had the freedom to make whatever he wanted, so the front end was drastically redesigned. They then evolved to the Latigo CS, which launched a few years later in 2007. Both of these cars were considered to be quite fast, with 0 to 60s in the high 3-second range, and their appearance being praised. However, Fisker Coachbuild wasn't acting as the car manufacturer, more as a specialty custom body car builder. They never had excess inventory and would build cars by hand individually per each owner. While Fisker did add some performance, it also came with a badge no one really knew. And since these were being built by hand, custom for each owner, as you can imagine, it came at a cost, around $300,000 to buy. Despite the 150 unit cap on each model, only 15 of the Tramontos were built, and just 2 of the Latigo CSs. But still, Fisker had ambition, and started an actual car manufacturing company called Fisker Automotive. It was 2007, and him and his business partner set up this new company in Anaheim, California, with a $5 million loan he got from an Italian businessman. The plan was to build plug-in hybrid luxury sedan for mass market appeal. The company also had plans to build a hybrid car that would cost less and be able to produce over 100,000 units a year. So the company pressed on, ultimately unveiling what they had been working on at the 2008 North American Auto Show. It was their first and new flagship car called the Fisker Karma. The Karma was promised to be an economical yet sporty luxury sedan, packed full with new technology, all within a sleek and very unique design. The vehicle would feature a 4-cylinder engine made by General Motors, as well as a set of 2 electric motors powered by a 20 kilowatt battery pack. Overall, the sedan would produce over 400 horsepower, which was pretty quick, yet started at a little over $100,000. Fisker was going full force with this vehicle, putting almost the entire fate of the company on its success. And after a $528 million loan from the US Department of Energy, the company announced in 2009 that they would be taking over a former GM manufacturing plant in Delaware. The new brand was also thinking big, unveiling their plans for what they wanted to come next, which was the Fisker Atlantic. However, by 2011, Fisker had finally started selling their official production model of the Karma.
Introducing the Fisker Karma, the world's first high-performance electric luxury vehicle.
And this is where the problems began. In December of that year, Fisker's battery supplier, A123 Systems, had recalled their battery cell. This meant everyone who had bought a Karma prior had to bring their vehicle in to have their battery switched out. If that wasn't bad enough, the company had called for another recall by the end of the new year, and eventually went bankrupt altogether. Fisker's hybrid powertrain now had a major supplier completely drop the floor out from under them. Not only was this a massive hassle for all the consumers who bought the Karma already, but it plagued their manufacturing process, forcing the production line to stop completely. There were also problems with the car itself, mainly in the fact that it just wasn't very good. Now, some of this is going to be in my opinion, but most of it was honestly objectively odd. Like how they placed the exhaust for the 4-cylinder engine just below the driver's door panel, so fumes would enter the cabin if you had the window rolled down. The vehicle also had a shockingly minimal amount of room both inside and in cargo space, mostly to accommodate for the battery. Interior controls for the basic functions of the car, like volume and climate control, were convoluted and needlessly difficult. The slow center screen made standard tasks so arduous. The Karma was also plagued by quality issues and reliability problems, famously breaking down on the Consumer Reports test. The vehicle was just simply not worth $100,000, especially as another car released that year, the Tesla Model S. Tesla had released their anticipated all-electric luxury sedan, which started at just $57,000, a huge price difference between the two base models. Tesla's sedan, however, I think everyone can agree was just a much better car overall, except perhaps for what people liked most about the Fisker, the styling. Honestly, I don't really understand why so many people loved the design, but that was the case, and it was really the only saving grace for the Karma, but not enough to keep the company afloat. Back at the headquarters, things were only getting worse. Remember that Department of Energy loan that was granted to Fisker? Well, it was based on the promise that Fisker would deliver around 30,000 hybrid vehicles for the US market. However, once it became obvious that Fisker wouldn't come close to meeting those requirements, the DOE froze the remaining $300 million they had left. This sent the company scrambling to find additional financing, not only to keep the Karma production going, but to get the Atlantic off the ground as well. Eventually, Henrik Fisker stepped down as CEO to a chairman position and appointed Tom Lasorda as chief executive. However, just 6 months later in August of 2012, he too was replaced by a new CEO. The company was sinking quickly, and even after securing another several $100 million in financing, Fisker was dealt another stroke of bad luck when over 300 cars waiting to be shipped to Europe were destroyed in Hurricane Sandy. The company's reputation continued to sink, as did their profits, building each car at a significant loss. Then, Henrik Fisker himself left the company in March of 2013, claiming he had disagreements over business strategy. It wasn't long afterwards that the brand came crumbling down. Many of the top-level executives had bailed just before the company announced they would be laying off over 75% of their employees, leaving just around 40 people left. By October, they sold their government loan at a steep discount, and just a month later, Fisker Automotive had filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. They had burned through over $1.3 billion, set up dealerships all across America to which they had to close, and had millions of dollars in concept cars that never came to fruition. Their one and only production model, however, the Fisker Karma, sold less than 1,800 cars in the US. The company was a spectacular failure. In bankruptcy court, Fisker's remaining assets were put up for auction and were eventually sold to the Chinese company Wanchong Group in 2014. The only assets that weren't sold was the company's name, which Henrik Fisker still owned. Instead, Karma Automotive was the name chosen for the Chinese brand. They essentially spun off the former Fisker Karma into a new vehicle called the Karma Revero, which was essentially the exact same car. They began producing them again in limited quantities in California by 2016. I'm not sure who's buying these outside of China, but the company does have a lot of money backing it, and they certainly have some future ambition. But speaking of ambition, what happened to Henrik Fisker? Well, following the collapse of his former company, Henrik had decided he wanted a second chance at building a successful car company. So, rather shockingly, in October of 2016, he formed Fisker Incorporated, a new automotive corporation. He was now committed to building the future of electric cars, both with unmatched range and autonomous capabilities, all which would be contained in their first new vehicle, the Fisker E-Motion, which is apparently a car that would start at around $130,000. I know what you're all thinking, and I'm sort of thinking the same, on how this sounds very similar to the first company's attempt into making a new futuristic car. However, as Fisker Inc. continued to grow and attract investors, they changed their strategy a bit. The brand announced what they called the Fisker Ocean, an all-electric SUV apparently with a starting price of $38,000 and a range of just under 300 miles. According to them, they plan to release it by 2022. So that leaves Fisker in a weird place. On one end, they have in some way proven themselves as a car company able to deliver an actual production vehicle, which is more than we can say about some companies. On the other side, I think many, including myself, would think that Fisker was in a unique moment in time back in 2012, when they had a much better shot to make a name for themselves as the eco-luxury sedan. However, ultimately, the Karma was plagued by issues, and Tesla reigned supreme, becoming the leader in the EV market, successfully implementing themselves as a desirable brand and continuing to innovate. Tesla now has an insane market cap of close to $400 billion. So Fisker today is trying to enter a now very crowded market where many other startups are all clamoring to capture just a small percentage of Tesla's market share. But just like the first time, Henrik Fisker has big plans for his new company. They have multiple concept cars in the works, yet there's still no word on when the actual luxury sedan will even come out. The Ocean SUV, though, apparently seems to be the one they're trying to market now the most. Yet even that only has just 7,000 reservations. Not a great sign, as the company is likely betting their entire future on this model. Fisker Automotive is really quite fascinating. Everyone knows about the Tesla Model S, but not many knew about its competitor at the time. I would even say Henrik Fisker was every bit as ambitious as Elon Musk, but never had the business mind or the foresight as the man who kept it going. Fisker focused on the design, which made sense as he was a designer, but failing to look past the design and focus on the fundamental issues of the car was essentially their downfall, and ultimately had no upsides over the Model S. Even the electric powertrain wasn't so efficient, since after the 20 miles or so of pure electric, the vehicle would switch to a gas engine, which was less efficient than some SUVs at the time. So Fisker ended up building a very weird car, one that ended up failing spectacularly. At the time, they were up against just another small startup just like them. But now, I see it as even more of an issue for them today. Tesla is now enormous and has vehicles in almost every major product category. Others like Rivian, GM, and Ford also have electric SUVs on the way. So it begs the question, how will Fisker stand out and survive in the most competitive landscape ever for electric SUVs? Or just electric cars in general? Well, that's probably the same question they're asking themselves right now. But this doesn't necessarily mean it has a bad ending to it, more of an unsure one. But I do know one thing, and that's if Fisker wants to survive, they better have a pretty great car coming in the future. If you enjoyed this episode and you want to show your appreciation while also helping support my future videos, then please consider donating to me on Patreon. That's the best way to show your support, and one which will give rewards like seeing my videos early and having your name at the end of the video. Anyway guys, my name is Jake, and thank you very much for watching.